Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Acme. I hope you've all been having an amazing MIGW. Woo! I love it. It's early morning, okay? So we can bring the energy up throughout the piece, you know. My name's Ari. I'm one of the public programmers here at Acme and also one of the games experts. And yeah, we're really excited to have you here for this amazing talk with someone who's really exciting in the industry. To me, Ryan Warden. Okay. Before we kick off, I'd like to acknowledge that today's talk is taking place on the lands of the Wurundjeri people of the Kulin Nation, and I'd like to pay my respects to elders past and present, and acknowledge that sovereignty was never ceded. Ryan Warden. He's a seasoned game developer, bringing over 20 years of experience in AAA game development. With a rich history of working on titles across multiple digital and console platforms, Ryan joined Obsidian Entertainment in 2022 to work on Avowed as production director. He previously has worked as a producer on franchises including League of Legends, Dragon Age, and Mass Effect. Today, you're going to have an opportunity to ask some questions to Ryan. As you can see up on stage, we've got a little QR code. That's to our Slido platform. So again, if you would like to ask any questions to Ryan, just give that a little scan, send them on through, and we'll have an opportunity for me to feed a few of them through towards the end of the session. Again, so some of you may know, look, a big focus of today's talk is really looking at sort of careers within the games industry. So whether you're here as a student who's studying game design or as an early career professional, I think Ryan's definitely going to be able to shine the light on some really interesting pathways and specific information about working within the games industry, particularly at a AAA level. So I think that's a good place potentially to think about if that's where you'd like to be asking your questions. To kick off with, we're going to have a little bit of a sizzle reel, and let's take a look at Avowed.
The splinter of Aethys. It rests in a shrine deep within this temple complex, beyond the reach of looters, visitors, or indeed myself. Return it to me, and who knows, perhaps you will meet your expedition along the way.
Try that again. Good one.
I did not expect you to be so thorough in your explorations. Nevertheless, I am impressed. There's nothing to fear. You won't feel a thing.
That looks awesome.
It's really good.
I can't wait to deep dive a little bit with you into Avowed and to give people a bit of a behind the scenes look. But before that, I'd like us to take a little bit of a journey back. What was your earliest experiences with games like? Were you always like a passionate game fan, and what were some of your favorites as a kid, and why?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I can recall really early on spending my allowance money to go down to Blockbuster Video, which was a thing back in those days, and renting video games for the weekend and just trying out the new game. And that went on for years. So oh boy, some really good memories. Super Mario Brothers 2 and the way that was such a dramatic shift from the first Super Mario. Was it World on the SNES? And then through to GoldenEye 64 and just playing round after round of deathmatch with my friends. And then that goes on to, Quake, and then Unreal Tournament, and so on and so on. And then working through RPGs along the way. And oh boy, that kind of brings us to where we are today.
And so that multiplayer experience, was that like the main way that you like to play games when you're younger? And and why is that?
That's interesting, because I think certainly during the formative stages of playing games, that was a little bit more single player games, and then as platforms evolved and you could start to play couch co-op with your friends, and then the internet was a little bit more widely available, and you could carry your PC tower over to your friend's house and then set up a LAN party and start to play StarCraft and all sorts of things where you really had to get into setting up a little bit of networking to be able to play with people. I think it was just more along the sort of shifts in technology that sort of informed that more so than sort of a gaming preference, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. So when did you think about or decide to start getting into game development and design as a profession?
So I went to university in right around the start of the .com boom in the late 90s, and I grew up in an oil town in northern Canada, and computer jobs were not, certainly at that time, plentiful, and so I was like, yes, .com boom, this seems like the thing to do. So I studied computing sciences, and then because timing has always been my strong suit, I finished university right around the time of the .com bust, and computer jobs, shockingly, were still not plentiful. So I was working at a call center at the time, and a friend of mine happened to be working for a local video game company called BioWare, and said, you know what, we've got an opening for a junior level tools programmer. Do you want to throw a resume in? And I said, yeah, sure. So I threw a resume in, and then went through lots of rounds of interviews, and they took pity on me, and I just sort of Hail Married my way into a job with BioWare, and I just got extremely lucky.
Well, I think that's a really good segue for us to look at some of your earlier career highlights. You have worked at some of the more renowned companies and franchises throughout the years. Sorry, let's go back. There we go. Some of the more renowned companies and franchises throughout the years, both kind of, I guess, in the single-player narrative RPG form, but also in the kind of the multiplayer, like games as service model type thing. So, obviously, as you can see on screen, Ryan has contributed to such iconic franchises as Mass Effect, Dragon Age, and also League of Legends. So, would you like to have a little bit of a think back at your time there and what some of your most memorable experiences were working on those games?
So it was really interesting, certainly on the Mass Effect side of things. So I joined BioWare right at the tail end of Jade Empire development, and here again, just like junior tools programmer, and I was working on the conversation editor, so how the writers were getting their words into the game, and here again, just got extremely lucky that we were spinning up a space game at the time, and I was thinking, oh, come on, I love sci-fi. I really hope that could be my next project. And it just so happened that for prototyping needs, they needed a conversation editor, and I was like, oh, okay, well, that's fortuitous timing, and so moving over to Project SFX, as it was known at the time. Science Fiction X, and setting up the conversation editor, and just hacking my way into just a prototype, and being told by my boss, "Don't worry, we're going to throw this all away at the end. This is by no means going to be the shipping tool that we use, certainly for 10 years and a trilogy of games." But that's the way that ended up working. So yeah, I got to spend a good amount of time, certainly in the early Mass Effect days, working on the sort of narrative tools and trying to get those to wrestle into submission with Unreal Engine 3 at the time. But a really memorable moment, if I can be permitted to ramble just a second longer,
Please.
here, was setting up the localization builds for Mass Effect 1. And this was at a time, shockingly, before build farms. And we had, I think, 4 desktop PCs that were set up on picnic tables in a spare meeting room. And at the time, Unreal Engine 3 didn't play well if the screen locked. So we had a batch file command that would just run your mouse in a cursor across the screen like this to prevent your screen from going to sleep, and thus Unreal could process all of the files that it needed in order to sort of generate the localized builds. And we had all of the files load balanced across 4 PCs. And one of my jobs was to go in and double click on the batch file on this PC, move over to the next PC, double click on this batch file, and then wait 3 hours, and maybe the build worked. And then eventually it became, this was a formative moment for me, it became clear that it was taking far too long for the 4 desktop PCs to run. And Greg Zeschug, one of the founders of BioWare, happened to be walking around at one point and heard just how long it was taking for us to make builds. And he said, "We can get you more PCs, no problem." And he doubled the amount of PCs that we got overnight. And whoa, that was all of a sudden it was taking 1.5 hours, where before it was taking 3 hours. Oh man, the joy. And that's just sort of a formative moment for me when it became clear that PCs are cheap. in comparison to people costs, yeah, that's a good move. Let's increase the horsepower so that we can bring more throughput to the team.
So you mentioned starting off, one of your earliest roles is as like a conversation, a dialogue editor, and those kind of things. And I mean, it is interesting that you have sort of worked on some of the series that are most renowned for, I guess, player choice and multiple pathways through dialogue trees that significantly kind of affect that narrative flow and outcomes. Sort of, I guess, how have the tools evolved that allow you to shape those pathways more between, I guess, working on something like Mass Effect and up to something like Avowed?
Oh man! So one of my early jobs on Mass 1 was trying to get the conversation editor to export from our string database into a file format that was readable by Unreal Engine, so that we could update almost in real time the actual running game. And I was not a very good programmer, it must be said. And I wrestled with that thing, and we were doing all kinds of crazy things with commandlets, and then that wasn't really working. So I started out with socket programming and trying to open up sockets on the Unreal side, and I was making it incredibly complicated, and it mostly never worked. It worked maybe 30% of the time, which, if you're a narrative designer, is as close to zero is about you can get. And errors would be popping up constantly, and I'm sure that they were tremendously frustrated with me. So fast forward now to the tools that we have at Obsidian, and we have this amazing team, the Core Technology Group, who have been honing and perfecting our tools as a centralized tools team, and that's what Obsidian uses to create branching dialogue and to get work into the game. And I was astounded at how it just works. And as somebody who labored really hard and was trying my best, and oh boy, was that ever not good enough, to look at the technological wizardry now, where you just click a button, it's like, yeah, no problem. It just works, and all of your work is instantly in the game, and you can preview it. It's just unbelievable, and we're so lucky to have the CTG team, the core technology team, and the amazing work that they've been doing.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I think also looking back at your past career, you have worked extensively on both sort of single player narrative experiences, but you've also worked on sort of live service, games like League of Legends. I guess for people who are looking at moving into that direction, what's the primary difference, I guess, between working on a major sort of single player game to a continual live service game like League of Legends?
Yeah, that's a great question. So that's actually one of the things that intrigued me about making the switch and moving to California and starting up with Riot is just sort of how do you approach production for a game that, if all goes well, is going to be running forever? And I think one of the big production methodology switches is that for a live service game, one of the big things that you can optimize for is efficiency, and just because you're constantly making another patch and another patch. And you're planning not just 2 weeks down the road, but you're planning 3 months down the road. And how are we going to be able to make new outfits in that time? And how are we going to be able to make new champions at that time? It really all has to be about efficiency and how much can we shave off of the process, and how can we make the pipeline better and easier for the devs on the team to actually push content through the pipeline. Whereas I think for a boxed product or for, say, a single-player RPG, that's a little bit less of the focus and a little bit more about, okay, how are we making the right thing at the right time, at the right quality bar? And certainly with so many different interconnected systems, as is typical of an Obsidian game, now we have to consider the scope of how many different departments are having to interconnect, and how do we make sure that we're all communicating effectively and that we are all marching towards the same vision, and that we don't accidentally blow each other's work up when it all comes smashing together at the very end.
I think this is a good point for us to sort of segue, because we've been talking a little bit about production, but your role at Obsidian is as a production director. I think often, the production side and the producing side within games is not discussed as much as some of the other key roles. So what does it mean to be a production director, working at a AAA games company?
I'll give you the short version that I use at parties, and you'll see why I'm tremendously fun to be around at parties, the role of production director in comparison to, say, a game director. So if you think of a game director as being the what and the why, then production director is the how and the when of that. So I partner with our game director, Carrie Patel, and she calls the shots, and then I work with the other directors and producers and leads to try to figure out, okay, so how are we going to accomplish that? And how are we going to, as I was saying previously, make the right thing at the right time, at the right quality bar that sort of aligns with Carrie's vision. But along the way, and this is a tremendous opportunity at Obsidian. Along the way, it's a little bit more practically just about greasing the wheels of production, and how do we make sure that people are talking, that we're all pointing in the same direction, and then get out of people's way so that they can actually accomplish the work.
Yep. I guess one of the key things is having those kind of key delivery milestones and things like that along the way. What are some of your techniques and tips for working with particularly a large team like at Obsidian, for getting them to come together and make sure that things are at the quality you want at the time you want along that production process?
Fantastic question. And this ultimately has to come back to just sort of production fundamentals. I have... I don't know if I should reveal this. I have a question that I ask of any producers in job interviews, and that is, what are the top 3 rituals or artifacts that you need to have in order to have confidence in a team's ability to execute and deliver. And my top three are a high-level roadmap to show, okay, where is the direction that we are going? And like you say, like what are the broad milestones that we need to accomplish? Then along the way, there's burn-down charts to show how do we make sure that we're making the appropriate amount of progress on sort of sub-milestones or releases or sprints that then ladder up to that broader milestone. And then from there, a risk register. What predictable surprises are going to jump out of the bushes and yell booga booga at us? And how do we get ahead of those so that they don't actually happen? And it's funny because I hold that near and dear in my heart. But when I first got to Avowed, I didn't set those up right away. I was more just sort of running around and trying to figure out, okay, who are all these new people? What's this new company? How are decisions made and communicated throughout the social organization? And it's just such a really good lesson to take it back to fundamentals. Always just go straight back to fundamentals and set up that North Star to say, like, here are the milestones that we need to accomplish in this amount of time. And then we can start to break that down into more accomplishable bites and say, okay, so this is a subset of those milestones. We have to accomplish these things. How are we going to do that? Hey, well, we have a couple of sprints that fall into this release. And if we have 2 sprints in a release, we need to get half the things done here, and we need to get half the things done here, and just sort of breaking it down until you get to the day-to-day, and then you can start to see whether that's accomplishable in the time that you have.
So I think it's time for us to start talking a little bit about Avowed. Maybe give us the elevator pitch, and a bit of background behind the game.
Yeah. So Avowed is the new fantasy RPG from Obsidian. It is set in the world of Aora, which was previously established in the Pillars of Eternity games, although this time I'm really excited for players to get a little bit more immersed into Aora because it's a first-person experience as opposed to sort of that isometric three-quarter view. And while we do have a third-person view for folks who can't enjoy first-person, I love the first-person view. And one of the things that just stands out to me is because it's first-person and it's not sort of that isometric view, you actually get to see the sky in Aora for the first time, and it is so cool. We've got some great skyboxes, and you get to see the moon. It's really quite something.
So with that first-person view, I mean, do you think that there's a level of immersiveness that's not shown with other ways of visually imagining a game?
I think so. I think that there's a real opportunity for you to get into that sort of look at exactly what the camera is showing, where instead of it's sort of showing a removed over the shoulder kind of top down three-quarter view where you're mostly looking at the ground and where you're going next. There's a really great moment early on in Avowed, in the first major region in Dawnshore. There's a great big lighthouse, and like any good lighthouse, upstairs you can see for miles. And so I took a look at the lighthouse and I noticed some sort of platforms there. So I started climbing up the platforms, and sure enough, you can get to the top of the lighthouse in Dawnshore. And you can hear the waves are lapping below, and there's a seagull that kind of flies by in front of your face. And the music just sort of kicked up into the full beans mix, if you will. And I was just looking out over the expanse of Dawnshore, and you just get this sense of adventure and saying, you know what, I'm gonna go over there. It's not quite like the full open world style where you point to the top of the mountain and say, yeah, I'm gonna billy goat my way up to that. But you get a sense of the grand scope of adventure and saying, yeah, okay, I'm gonna go over there and I'm gonna pick up some friends along the way and we're gonna have some adventures. And I think that is made slightly more possible by being in that first-person view, and then all of the rest of the audio-visual coming together to really just create that sense of place. And it's astounding how real-world it feels.
mean, earlier we were talking quite a lot about the importance of both music and sound design into the world of Avowed. So can you tell us about a little bit about working with those teams and I guess some of the key moments and memory from this experience?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been working really, really closely with the music on the game. We've got a spectacular composer by the name of Venus Theory, who's been doing an awful lot of music for us. And it's really cool just how creatively in sync we are. Just right from day one, he got exactly what we were doing, and you could tell just in the gleam in his eye. He said, "Oh, okay, I'm right on the page," and he started creating a bunch of music, and we were batting ideas back and forth, and it's unbelievable to be so creatively in sync with somebody. It's just such a wonderful, charged feeling to come into work every day and see what's something new that you can create. And so, Venus Theory's been putting just a ton of great music into the game. It is making the world feel so alive. We were talking earlier, and I was talking about one of the regions later in the game that has never, for whatever reason, just never really been my bag. And I kind of liken it to string beans, which aren't my favorite vegetable, and for no particular reason. And I'm not saying other people shouldn't like them, but I just don't prefer them. And so it was with that region in the game, but we just got some music in there. And here again, Venus Theory had outdid himself on this one, because it's now one of my favorite regions. And I've been spending a ton of time just hanging out in there and just absorbing that world. And it wouldn't have been possible without the music coming in. So on the one hand, it's been just creatively fulfilling to be able to work so closely with the music. And on the other hand, it's been elevating the game. I can't wait for everybody to be able to hear the soundtrack. It's an absolute banger.
I'd like to think a little bit about your career journey that sort of led you to this point and working as production director on Avowed. So what sort of learnings have you taken from previous roles that have become really essential in your processes here at Obsidian and on Avowed?
So I think I'm going to talk about producer means different things at different studios and indeed different companies. Some places it's a little bit more of a creative director role. Some places it is solely a project manager role. Some places it's just a mix of both, and that's just three options that there are available. And so, going from BioWare to Riot to Obsidian, one of the things that I've sort of taken with me there is the concept of what are some of the core things that a producer can do, and I've kind of boiled it down to about 5 things. The first is champion the vision. So nobody should need to wait for the game director to wake up to understand how their work is going to ladder into the game that we're making. Your friendly neighborhood producer should be able to run around and champion the vision, even if they're not necessarily coming up with it themselves. They're so in sync with what the vision for the game is, they can sort of proselytize to the rest of the dev team. The second is provide context for development. And because you understand the vision really well, and because you're working with a good number of teams across the game, you can kind of poke your head up and say, oh, hold on. So-and-so over there is working on something similar. Let's maybe have a conversation with you two, because here's the context of what we're making and how it ties into the broader development of the game. And that kind of ties into number 3, which is build bridges between teams. And something that I saw certainly early on as an associate producer, sometimes you get the feeling of if I can situate myself in between all of the conversations. If everything has to flow through me, I can sort of direct the flow of information. And what you're doing there is becoming a bottleneck for that. So if you can tie teams together such that they're talking, and then extricate yourself so that you can go solve problems elsewhere, that is a far, far better use of everybody's time. The fourth is scheduling. So proper planning prevents poor performance. And I think the British SAS throw an extra P in there. But your job is absolutely to work to a timeline and to establish that timeline and make sure that everybody understands the timelines for development. And then the fifth one is shield and nurture your team from the let's say, nonsense involved in bringing a product to market. So do you want your programmers, for example, talking to the legal team so that they can figure out, can we do X, Y, and Z things? Probably not. If you've got the best programmers in the world, get them heads down and working on programming. That is the job of a producer, is to, okay, now we can interface with legal, we can have those conversations, and I'll give you the output of those conversations. I'll give you the outcomes of those conversations. And that's not to pick on legal, but that's just like a salient example that leaps into mind of, no, shield your teams from the sort of external realities of bringing a product to market so they can get heads down and do the best work that they can. So champion the vision, provide context for development, build bridges between teams, schedule your brains out, and then shield and nurture your teams so that they can do their best work. And I think that if you can do those 5 things, you're going to be a great producer.
That's some really valuable information. I am interested because, like, I think one of the things as a producer, I've worked as a producer, not within games development, but myself, and I think maintaining a sense of control over all things at all times is something that's really difficult to come past. And so what are some of your tips, I guess, for working with your team and sort of distributing like the sort of roles and the power within the organization, so you don't feel you need to do everything yourself?
Yeah, that is a prescient question, and I think where we can start with that is by going to that first principle of champion the vision. If you are extremely micromanaging your team and you're trying to hold on to that sense of control and parceling out individual pieces of work, that there is a place for that, but I don't think that you get the best quality result from that. So I think where we can do better is if it's setting the bounds of development and saying, this is the problem space that we have to operate within, and here's the vision. Here are the things that we're trying to achieve. Here's the vision. Let's talk about this. You're all intelligent people. You're in this conversation for a reason. How are we going to achieve this? And then just sort of stepping back and let smart people be smart people and come up with interesting ideas. Now, then you've got to make sure that there are some constraints in there. It's, time constraints, budget constraints. Oh, well, we've only got so many people. We maybe can't go completely blue sky on this one. But if you're able to provide that sort of sense of constraint and the vision of what we're trying to achieve, and then you've got smart people talking about how to achieve that, get out of their way. Let them go forth and achieve. Set up regular reviews so that you're inspecting work early, and you can say, okay, so are we serving the vision here? Are we pointing in the right direction? Are we going in the direction of the North Star? If yes, awesome, cool. Get back out of the way. If not, okay, it's time to course correct. What do we need to do in order to get back into good shape? And at that point, it's just people talking and collaborating. And if you can get people talking and collaborating, you're going to have a much better result than just feeding JIRA tickets in front of somebody who's then heads down and just doing whatever comes across their plate.
So, given that we've got a lot of sort of game design students and early career professionals, if people were to take away just one major piece of advice for you for merging into the industry, what would that be?
That's a good one. So I think one of the things that I see not super often, but it sort of sticks out when you do see it, is the sort of myth of the auteur, and you come out of. Or rather, you enter a team ready to set the world on fire, saying, you know what, I have this grand vision. And maybe you've been working on a smaller team size. Certainly there are student projects that happen while you're in school, and you're working on a team there. But if you're going to step onto a team of 100 people, of 200 people, the value of the team is so much greater than the value of the individual. And I think that the myth of the auteur is something that tends to stick up every now and then, and we kind of need to say, hold on, we need to all function as a team, and we all need to serve the vision of the game. And if we're going to do that, then we can't have anybody standing up and proudly trying to be an auteur, because that runs contrary to the vision of the game. And so I think to distill that down into something a little bit more sensible is get ready to work as a member of a team, and know that you can accomplish so much more together than you could on your own.
Amazing. I'm sure we're all eager to know when are we likely to see Avowed out there on the market?
February 18. So wish list on Xbox and Steam and all the familiar places.
We are going to get on to some audience questions quite soon, but just before we do that, game development does not always go the way that you were expecting, and sometimes there are some quite hilarious and funny things that occur along the way. So we're going to take a little bit of a look behind the scenes at Avowed at some of these, and maybe if you could just sort of tell us behind the stories of each one.
Yeah, you bet. So this is Adventures in Physics. So we've got a sportling here who gets hit with a particularly charged attack. And, that poor guy is having a bad day. And this is the confluence of so many different departments. You might think that this is perhaps solely animation, but this is character art and tech art and skinning and rigging, a little bit of animation, and it's just trying to get those all working together in Confluence is sometimes difficult. And here we have a glimpse at underwater effects that are being applied to sort of what I would call the overlands. You are above ground on this one, and there is no water in sight, but the underwater effects are still being played. And this one's my favorite. The tremendous power that mouse has to open the door. So clearly we were copying and pasting onto this little critter, and they somehow gained the ability to open doors. Well, maybe they shouldn't have in the first place.
That's great, thank you. Look, Ryan, you've given us such an amazing insight into your role as a production director, but also within the games industry as a whole. And we definitely have some great questions here from the audience. There's still an opportunity if you'd like to add some. Please just hit up the Slido that's on screen. This is a really interesting one. So, what does your day-to-day look like as a production lead?
Ooh, that is a fantastic question. And the reality is it's different every single day. And that's one of the things that I love about production is that there's always something new that is coming on. And usually it's in the form of a problem that needs to be untangled. We don't have quite enough money, time, resources to do something that we really, really want to do. And sometimes we've committed to going down the road a certain degree of. And what are we going to do about that? So lots of meetings with different members of the team, and largely just kind of, as I was saying before, trying to get people to talk together. And then it's unraveling problems of, okay, we think that we can't do something that we really want to do. All right, what do we need to do in order to actually fulfill that?
I'm going to jump in with a sneaky one. Like, what is your favorite part of your role, something that you love doing each day, and what is your most hated part of the role?
The most hated part of my role is like drudgery paperwork, updating the budget, writing contracts to dot I's and cross T's. That is something that brings me comparatively little joy, but. As I was sort of getting into when talking about the music, I get great fulfillment out of working with talented, creative people to make things. And that is just one of the coolest things about working in video games is you get to work with talented, creative people all day, every day. And yeah, there might be some problems that you have to solve, but you get to make such cool things at the end of the day. And there's so many different disciplines that all come together such that the game is greater than the sum of its parts. And that is something that is so cool to be a part of. And it also affords me the opportunity to come here today and to be part of this. Like, how cool is this? Not everybody gets to come to Melbourne and be part of this. So I'm just tremendously fortunate.
It's so cool to be able to speak with you as well. What are some good tips for networking whilst looking for opportunities in the games industry?
That's a great question because it's so difficult, and there's certainly the predilection to sort of cold call and to reach out via LinkedIn and just. Hey, I'd love to set up 30 minutes of time with you. Like, oh well, that's awfully presumptuous of you.
Sure you
would. So I think the cold call is not necessarily the best approach, but something that I've always been a fan of is GDC, and going to talks at GDC. This is sometimes less possible than others, but if you go to a good talk and you're able to strike up a conversation with the presenter afterwards and say, "Hey, look. Can I buy you a social beverage of your choice? Because I want to get into the nitty-gritty of this. I'm having this problem over here, and I know that we need to be somewhat sanitized here, and we can't get into the real details super publicly. But if we can get together and talk about this interesting problem space, that would be really cool. And then that sort of transcends the cold call aspect of it because it makes the focus the problem space, and you're sort of bringing your own personal experiences to it, and it's a little bit more of a collaborative kind of environment. So that's my preferred approach, and I realize that is not going to work for all folks in all times. But if you can demonstrate that you're thoughtful and curious, and you're open to being collaborative about a shared problem space, I think that's probably a great place to start.
That's a great piece of advice. This is a really good question. How much of working in the industry is knowledge? How much is experience? And how much is luck?
Oh, I'm a huge believer that so much of it is luck. Certainly in my case, it's all entirely luck. You get some folks who have great fonts of knowledge and absolutely, there's nothing you can do about that, right? If you are not a possessor of vast amounts of knowledge, there's nothing that you can do. But I think if you going back to what I was just saying previously, if you are open and curious, the sky's the limit for you, and I think we too often have a narrow focus of what it means to work in the industry. You say, well, I'm going to be a writer, or I'm going to be an animator. But we have lawyers. We have finance people who love to work in the budget, and Lord love and keep them for that. But if your passion is finance, oh my gosh, you can do that in the video game industry. If your passion is law that happens to take place in the voiceover performance space, oh boy, is there ever a role for you in the industry. So you can absolutely pursue whatever passion you want. And if you're open and curious and want to collaborate on things, I think that's a winning combination.
Yeah, definitely. I think also, how do you feel about, like, I guess, the unexpected pathway and those kind of things, the unexpected opportunities that come up? I mean, like, to be honest, no kid when they're like 15 goes, I want to be a producer. That's what I want to do for life. But it is something that you kind of fall into and fall in love with. But there's not necessarily one way to get there. So
absolutely, and it's, you know, at the risk of being the guy who quotes Robert Frost up here, you know, way leads on to way, and certainly that's been the case in my career. I was a programmer and not a particularly good one, and happened to be playing poker with a bunch of producers one night, and so way led on to way there, and some of the other best producers that I've worked with have started out in other disciplines as well, and I think that just makes you a little bit more well-rounded. And any producer who can be conversational across a wide variety of disciplines in the game, and somebody who really understands how the entirety of the game is made, they're going to be an extremely effective producer. So I don't think that there is any one path, but the pursuit of knowledge and passion is going to land you in pretty good stead.
For sure. What are the perks and what are the downfalls of listening to player feedback?
One of the downfalls is it hurts. When you pour your heart and soul into something, and you're like, yes, I'm onto something. This is going to be great. And this makes all the sense in the world. This is awesome. And then you put that in front of people for the first time and have to be confronted with the fact that you're maybe not a genius. Or if you are, maybe it just didn't land. We were talking earlier about my boss Fergus had provided this video about the making of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, and how in the initial cut of Ferris Bueller's Day Off, which is like a pretty highly regarded piece of cinema, test audiences hated it, and they realized that they had they had edited the movie together in sort of the wrong chronology, and if they just moved a couple of scenes around, that it would make a lot more sense. And so they did that, put it back in front of test audiences, and then test audiences loved it. And so I can see how they put so much thought into the movie and then released that in front of people, and it probably hurt that they didn't love it. But that's one of the great benefits, is that, okay, cool, now we can do something with that. And we've done a ton of player feedback and user experience testing with Avowed. And we've definitely seen that some of the things that we were like, yes, this is awesome, this is going to be so clear to the players, absolutely did not land. So, okay, cool. It's better to catch that now when it's early, and we can actually do something about it, and we can tune it and tweak it to make it make sense for people. And then we can actually realize that vision of what we've been trying to achieve the whole time. So it doesn't always... Sometimes it hurts, but it's ultimately for the best product that you're going to make. So it's hugely important, and it's so helpful.
Obviously, one of the huge changes that has occurred throughout the years has been the ability to continually patch, to update, to improve on things that have been released, which previously in the past you weren't able to do. So how, I guess, has that changed your experience as someone working in the industry, and and releasing the product that you initially dreamed to release?
Oh boy, there's a lot of questions in that one. So I think ultimately it's better for devs and it's better for players to be able to patch more frequently. On the one hand, there's something nostalgically pure about having that boxed product and saying, like, this is it, this is this game. Back when Jade Empire was released, I took my lunch break and I went down to the local electronics store, and I just sort of hung around and watched people pick copies off of the shelf, and was like, yeah, that felt really, really good. But that was at a time when, there wasn't this sort of patch cycle, and what you made, that was pretty much it, more or less. And now we get to make so many more fixes than we would otherwise be able to, and we get to respond to player feedback along the way. So in the sense of making fixes, we get to improve the quality of the game. Just demonstrably, there is no question there. In live service games or in early access for games, we get to take advantage of more eyes on that. You can do all of the user testing in the world, but when hopefully millions of people play your game, oh man, you're going to find so much more just by dint of the large number of people that are seeing it. And so you can really react more. And getting that sort of community feedback has been such a boon for the final product and for players, that I'm really glad that we live in the age that we do now.
So we were just talking. You were just talking about going down to the store and picking up physical media, and obviously, there's a sort of divide these days between owning something on a piece of physical media and buying or licensing a digital copy. What are your thoughts on like digital media as opposed to like a traditional piece of physical media?
Oh, sticky questions. I'm going to give you my preference on this one. I have not been buying physical media for years at this point, and on the one hand, I'm kind of nostalgic for having that box, but on the other hand, as somebody who's moved multiple times in recent memory, it's nice to not have to pack up all of my stuff. Like I can have all of my photos on my phone, and then if I just have my phone with me, then I can take that with me. I can have all of my games downloaded to my Xbox, and then I don't have to move boxes upon boxes of games. But at the same time, I'm human and I'm somewhat nostalgic and wistful for those moments where you could put something up on a shelf and look at it wistfully and say, remember that? So I'm kind of two minds on the subject. The practical side of me says like, yeah, let's live a Spartan existence and not have to move too many boxes. But then the nostalgic, romantic side of me goes, it's always nice to look at that box and remember what was.
100%. Yeah. I guess, do you ever worry about when you're owning digital media, it at any point not being available for you anymore?
Not really, though I know that possibility exists. It's been kind of tricky because there are. So I grew up in Canada and I moved to the U.S. in 2015, and there are certain albums that I grew up listening to that are still to this day not available in the U.S. just due to copyright laws. And on the one hand, I kind of miss listening to the albums of my youth that I just like somehow can't get. But on the other hand, there is more music out there for me to listen to, and I'm not trying to be prescriptivist on this or say that anybody should feel differently, but I just somehow it hasn't been that big of a thing for me personally. I don't worry about it too much. I assume that day is coming and I won't be able to enjoy X, Y, or Z thing, but it doesn't keep me awake at night.
Where are we? What is something that you wish someone had told you when you were first trying to break into the games industry?
Here again, for me personally, I think be patient is the big takeaway for me. It's good to want to set the world on fire. It's good to be ambitious. It's good to be driven. But it's also good to just sit in the moment and enjoy the things that you enjoy doing. As you're chasing advancement, as you're chasing new responsibilities, with those new responsibilities come new responsibilities, and you might not have the opportunity to enjoy the same things that you once enjoyed doing. So if you really enjoy small scale parceling out Jira tickets to a team and running a stand-up and getting developers together on the small scale, 4 to 10 people to really talk about what they're doing on a day-to-day basis. If you really enjoy that, as you continue to progress in the course of your career as a producer, you might not get the opportunity to do that specific thing. Other responsibilities will come up and you'll get exposed to new things. But that's the job of somebody else, and you may not get that opportunity to revisit that as often as you like. So I would say be patient, and in the moment when you're enjoying doing something, just enjoy doing that. If you're anything like me, that's advice that I would have given myself back in the day.
So we are here at ACME, Australia's Museum of Screen Culture. I'm kind of interested. What influences or inspiration do you take from other forms of screen media, from film, from television, that you work into your game design?
Yeah, that's an awesome question. One of the big influences, certainly for Avowed, was the movie Annihilation. And there's a very specific scene where the team is standing in front of, I think they call it the Shimmer, and there's this look of trepidation on their faces, but it's not just trepidation. It's nervousness, but also excitement and going on an adventure, but it might be dangerous. And there's a sort of duality of experiences that is shared in just a brief moment and only with exchanged glances. And that's something that we've really tried to inject into the DNA of Avowed. Is the world is responding to your actions, and is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? It's exciting. It's dangerous. It's some sort of confluence of the two, and if we pull that off, it's going to be all the better than just a single emotion. That's kind of a rambly answer, but
that's great. Look, I mean, when we were looking through that GIF of the kind of underwater effect or so, I definitely got that shimmer vibe from Annihilation. You can just kind of see the influences there.
Yeah, so, that's cool.
I guess, as a final question, is there anything outside of Avowed great that you have played or watched recently?
Oh boy, we've been really, my wife and I have been enjoying Bad Monkey on Apple TV Plus, which is an adaptation of a novel, and just the way that it is filmed, it is just so true to the characters and the place of that novel. It's really come across extremely effectively. That's something that we've been enjoying recently, and then. On deck is Dragon Age, and I can't wait to get into that.
Amazing. I do have one last amazing question from the audience. How much coffee do you drink a day?
Today, jet lag has come for me real hard. So I'm on several different coffees, but I've discovered the magic of magic. And when I have to go back home, I don't know what I am going to do. So thank you for introducing me to magic.
We do love magic here. Can I please get you to put your hands together for the amazing Ryan Warden? And just before we finish up, can you remind us once again when we're able to see Play Avowed and on what platforms?
Absolutely. Well, thank you for setting that up for me. So you'll be able to play Avowed on February 18th on Xbox Series X, S, and Steam. So wishlist now.
That's great. And are the audiences able to catch you anywhere else this weekend?
Yeah, I'm going to be at PAX later this afternoon and sort of wandering around PAX all of tomorrow as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time again, Ryan. Can we please give him one last round of applause?
Thank you for having me. This has been fantastic. Very much appreciated.
Thanks, Ryan.